Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here, and today I wanted to talk about what the best season for camping / overlanding is. And you're all probably going to have some opinions on this, so I want to see you guys down in the comments. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, post up in the comments down below if you're on YouTube. I'd love to hear from you. Either way, because these are going to be my opinions, right? Based on 5 or 6, 7 years of doing this now. So I've been doing it for a while. I have some strong opinions about the different seasons and what I think is best. But again, post up down below and let me know what you guys think. So let's get into what is the best season for camping and overlanding.
Understand where it came from, but you got it, my got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you give to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, guys, so as I mentioned in the intro, today I'm talking about the best season for camping / overlanding. Now, again, as I mentioned, this is going to be my opinion, right? Don't light me on fire, but feel free to disagree with me in the comments down below on YouTube, or if you're on the podcast, jump over to some of my other social channels like Facebook, Instagram, that sort of thing. We'll be having discussions over there as well, or Newbie Overlanders, linked in the description down below. Totally free to join Facebook group. Awesome people, but we'll be talking about it over there too. But so let's start with point number 1, which is location is important, right? So keep in mind, I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Indiana. I'm in the Midwest, like the real Midwest. And here in the summer right now, it's 93 outside and about 75, 80% humidity. So it's miserable. You step outside and you're just immediately just sweating. So location is important, right? If you're out west, when I was in Wyoming in July last year, I thought, man, we're going to Wyoming in July. This seems like kind of a hellscape. Not at all, because you can go up to elevation, right? And you can be in the 60s up on top of a mountain. It's beautiful. You guys are lucky. So sorry for me. Feel sorry for me is what I'm saying. Feel bad, because where I live is a hellscape in the summer. So again, we have a lot of factors that I feel like here in the Midwest specifically make it really terrible to go camping in the summer. And so let me list out a few of those and see if you guys are local, or if you guys are, around the Midwest or in a similar climate, you may agree with these things. So just to kind of put it out there up front, I personally think that fall and winter are the best times to camp. I would go fall first, winter second, spring third, summer fourth. So I think that summer is the absolute worst time to overland, which is funny because in a lot of these groups I see people going, about April, May, they're like, camping season's coming around. I'm getting all my stuff ready. And I'm like, I'm packing all my stuff up. This is like modification time. The summer's when I make upgrades to my truck. It's when I build out new stuff like my drawer system. It's when I change up my gear setup. I've changed out a fridge recently, that kind of thing. Like the summer is when I do projects. The summer is when I take less trips. It just is, because it's miserable. So let me tell you some of the downsides, some of the cons of overlanding / camping here in the Midwest. Thing number 1 is ticks. Ticks in Indiana are atrociously bad. And I know that they are in a number of other places too, but I'm just saying, here in the summer, you literally go to a campsite, and I permethrin my clothes, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. If you're not familiar with that, definitely search for permethrin on YouTube here, and there are a ton of videos about it. I will probably be making one at some point because I just recently started using it. A friend of mine told me all about it, and it does make a huge difference. It's not 100%. It doesn't completely stop the ticks, but it definitely reduces them, and that's the key, is that it only takes one to bite you to give you Lyme disease, to potentially, make you really sick. So let me tell you a story of that, actually. So about a year and a half ago, I was on my way to the Moore Expo out in the Ozarks, and myself and a buddy, Matt Fry from Fries on the Side is his YouTube channel. We were on our way, and we got about 6-7 hours away from my house, which Moore is about 10 hours away. And we found a state park, and we went camping there Wednesday night because we were going to be there a day early. We were actually just going to make most of the trip out and then arrive on Thursday when we were allowed to check in. So we wanted to get part of the way out there, camp, spend an extra night hanging out, smoking cigars, and just chatting. So that was what we did, and we stayed in the state park. Well, I, at some point, got a tick right under my waistband of my pants. And for those of you that don't know, the Moore Expo is about 4 or 5 days long. So what happened was I just didn't notice it. I didn't feel it. I didn't see it. I just didn't notice it. And then things are go, go, go at those expos. So I was a storyteller there. So I was on Storyteller Row, and I was, hanging out with people just day in, day out. And I just went for 3-4 days in a row. And then I came home. And then when I got home, I'm taking, changing clothes and everything, getting a really good hot shower. And I look down and I see this tick right there on my waist. And I'm like, oh no, that's probably been on there for a while. So I immediately contacted my doctor. Our systems here, our healthcare systems here have like an app, so you could just, send them a message. I sent them a message and they immediately responded and were like, hey, we're putting in antibiotics. Go pick these up ASAP and start taking them. So I did, took a big long round of antibiotics, and I thought, okay, great. Everything was fine. I caught it in time, right? Fast forward a couple months and I felt sicker than I've ever felt. And I've had COVID a time or two. It was worse than that. I'm an adult man. And I had like a 106 fever, and I was alternating shivering and shaking to like burning up with fever for 2 straight days. So bad that I couldn't even work on my laptop. I couldn't even focus on anything. I felt so sick for 2 or 3 days. Again, I contacted the doctor. They said, we're going to give you some more antibiotics. They did that. I've not had any of the side effects of that, the Lyme or anything like that. I like meat still. Everything is fine. But I'm extremely nervous about ticks. I do not ever want to have one of those on me again. I don't want to risk Lyme disease. I don't want to risk any of that stuff. So again, I am extremely anti-tick. And the best way to avoid them is just not to go in the summer, honestly. In the winter, they go away. They completely disappear. So, that's kind of a reason, and that's a sort of a long-winded story, so I apologize, but I wanted to share that with you because it's extremely important to be careful about that stuff, right? You can't be nonchalant and flippant about ticks because they really are a danger. They really could hurt you or seriously impair you for the rest of your life. So definitely permethrin is a huge thing. You spray it on your clothes, you let it sort of soak into the clothes, and it actually lasts for about 6 weeks or 6 washes. So that's kind of nice, is that you can use it, and it will, when the ticks hit you, it basically shuts down their nervous system. So they basically start crawling and then they kind of just stop. And I think eventually if they stay in the permethrin enough, it will kill them. But the key is if they land on your clothes, they're not climbing up and going down into your shirt or going down into your pants, right? So again, permethrin is a huge thing. I'll put a link in the description down below. Using bug spray, just like the normal stuff, right? But so ticks are really, really bad. The weather, it's more rainy, right? In the winter, obviously, if it starts there's condensation, it's going to be snow or maybe worst case freezing rain. But you're just in the spring and summer, you're going to have rain, which kind of can, sort of dampen the campfire vibe if you're out hanging out. So I don't like rain as much. But at the end here, I'm going to kind of talk to you about how to cope with these downsides of both the hot weather and the cool weather, right? So stay tuned for that. That's going to be sort of the final part of this episode, is kind of how to cope with these things. Right now, I'm just complaining. I know that, but I'm just listing off the pros and cons of each, the warm weather and the cool weather, so that you guys are aware of them if you haven't ever really experienced them. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you how to cope with them. So ticks, bugs just in general are annoying. They're going to fly around your head. They're going to fly into your ear. They're going to be annoying. They're going to be loud. They're going to make noises at night that are going to keep you up. Frogs are out. That's another thing that you don't really think about. I've had multiple campsites in my local Hoosier National Forest near me where I will go to sleep, and then all of a sudden I just hear what sounds like 50 frogs just croaking nonstop all night. So it can impact your sleep. The wildlife can impact your sleep. In the morning, whippoorwills and birds start chittering about 5 o'clock, 4:30. So you're going to get woken up early. Your sleep is going to be impacted. So that's another thing that I view as a con of summer. Whereas in the winter, super quiet, super peaceful, nothing around. All the animals go away. They go into hibernation. The birds migrate. The frogs go into hibernation. Like, everything goes away. The ticks go away. So in my opinion, fall and winter are the absolute best times to go. But the summer, heat, ticks, other bugs, terrible. Rain, not so good. Humidity sucks. If you're in a humid climate again, like I am, that is no fun. Being sweaty and hot. There's only so many layers you can take off, but in the winter, you can always put more layers on. Or you could get something like a battery-powered heated jacket, like my Venestus that I've got, that I'll link to down below. And I'll put a card up here to that video as well. But like, they have a ton of really nice jackets that are just warm on their own, but then they also have a battery pack, and you can literally turn on heat. So if it's freezing cold, you can cope with that. But if it's smoldering hot, 95, super humid, unless you're by a lake or water source or something like that, it's really tough to cope with that. Even with a fan or things like that, you can get a little bit better with it, but you're always going to be hot and sweaty. And as we all know, once you start sweating, it's almost impossible to stop sweating until you take a shower, which is tough if you're out in the middle of nowhere. All right, so that kind of covers pros and cons of both summer and winter. But now let's dive into how to deal with them. And I'm going to start with summer. So again, I've talked a tiny bit. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit there on the permethrin stuff for ticks. Using permethrin is a great way to drastically cut down on the number of ticks that make it onto your body, into your clothing, right? So permethrin is a huge must, in my opinion, if you're going to be going in spring or summer. I have found that the bottle that I'm going to link to down below will last me for probably about 12 to 14 applications. So, you do need to treat your shirt and your pants. I also do my socks just in case, and generally my boxers too, because if those little ticks get in there anywhere, I want them to stop moving. I want them to die, and I want them to not be able to bite me, right? But so you can, I can usually get like a pair of socks, pants, shirt, boxers and I can do that about 12 to 14 times with a bottle of this stuff. And again, it lasts for 6 weeks. So if your summer is 3 months long, you basically only have to apply it twice. And if that's one set of clothes that you wear on overnighters, you could do just that one set of clothes twice. You could make that bottle last for 7 years, right? So it will go quite a while, but you can also burn through it if you have multiple night trips. If you're treating 5-6 pairs of clothes, then it's going to go pretty quick. You're going to use, half the bottle on that first trip if it's a 4-day trip and you've got 4 sets of clothes, 5 sets of clothes. So just something to be aware of. Bug spray, again, I'll put a link to the stuff that I use down below, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's a million different kinds. I use like the Deep Woods Off, that sort of thing. Stuff with DEET works really well. But just the typical sort of bug spray stuff, you could use whatever you want. If you have kids, you may need the softer spray stuff that's not as aggressive so that it doesn't mess with, their breathing and that sort of thing. As far as rain goes and things like that, again, just being prepared is super important. That's kind of part of overlanding, right, is being prepared. So having like a waterproof jacket can be extremely helpful because then it keeps your clothes underneath dry. It definitely raises your morale if you're getting poured down rain on, if you have to do a recovery or something, get out of the vehicle, if you get stuck. If you're sitting around at camp and it starts to rain, having something that will keep you dry is super important. And again, you don't have to spend $1 million on it. You could just get some sort of a waterproof jacket. I have the one that I'm linking down below that was really inexpensive, but it's completely waterproof, and I've used it on, trips to New York. I think one time we wore it and it poured down rain. I use it on camping trips. I use it on everything, and it's so cheap that if it falls apart or gets a burn on it from a campfire or something, it's not going to hurt anything. I'll just go buy another one. So something like that is good. Also, awnings. So if you've got a vehicle-mounted awning, I have an OVS 180 on my truck. You can open that up. You can set up a table or your chairs underneath it. You could set up a propane fire pit if it's pouring down rain to, be able to have that ambiance a little bit, be able to enjoy your camping trip even if it's pouring down rain, not have to mess with firewood or, trying to keep it going in the pouring rain. So there are ways to deal with that too. Same with heat. There are things like the Zero Breeze, which is a sort of portable air conditioning unit. Now that thing's really expensive. And again, I'll put a link in the description down below. I have one, and in the super, super humid hot days, it is kind of a game changer, but they only last about 5 to 6 hours. So you're going to want to wait as late as possible to go to sleep and turn it on. And then hopefully it runs enough through the night that you are not super uncomfortable. Another option would be fans. There are a number of fans. So like I've got this really nice one from a company called Sylvan. I'll put a link to down in the description below, but it's rechargeable. It's got a built-in light. It's got a built-in fan. It's got hooks on the top here so that you can actually hang it from like the top of your tent if you wanted to. You can use this as a stand to like lean it, lay it down on the ground of your rooftop tent or something and blow into your face. So it's got all the options, right? It's a little on the bulky side, so you got to make sure that you've got room in your kit for that, but it's a really nice option for not a ton of money. Another thing that I actually saw on TikTok is one of these little guys. This is like a jet fan. I'll turn it on here for you. It actually moves a lot of air. And it's really small, really tiny footprint, rechargeable with USB-C, which is really nice. But this thing has a tilting head on it. So kind of the same idea as the Sylvan. You could lay this down and aim it, aim this wherever you want. It also comes with a lanyard, so you could attach it to your chest and aim it up at your face and have it blowing on you all the time. I've also got a thing from a company called Hand Fun, which is an amazing name for a fan, that you clip to your belt buckle, and you basically clip your shirt into it, and then it blows the air up into your shirt so that it kind of gives you some relief on those hot days, and it's wearable, which is nice. So again, fans will make a big difference, right? But that's just something that you've got to think about. You can't go out there just assuming you're going to sleep fine when it's going to be 70, 80 degrees at night. But if you bring a fan or something that's rechargeable, something that you can, plug into your vehicle the next day to charge up, or a dual battery setup, or like a power bank, something like this power bank to be able to recharge your stuff, then you can go a lot farther and you'll have a lot better trip. And we all know that comfort is important, right? It may seem bougie to have a fan or a light or a power bank or whatever. And again, you don't have to go out and spend $1 million. This fan's like $20, $24, something like that. And it's super nice. It puts out a ton of air. The Sylvan one is like $30 or $40. It's not bad at all. But if you're a tent camper or something, this thing's really nice for, bigger applications like a Gazelle, for example. Okay, so that is kind of ways to deal with summer, ways to deal with the heat. Let's move into winter now and fall. So again, the bugs go away in fall, so you don't really have to mess as much with bug spray. You don't really have to mess with permethrin because the ticks go away. The only thing that you really have to worry about is snow, right? There could be snow, and there's some danger factors with that too. So you want to have recovery gear for that stuff. You want to be prepared because the conditions on the trails are going to change, right? The conditions on the trails are going to change. The conditions for sleeping are going to change. If it's going to get super cold, you're going to want to have something like redundant backups for heat. So you're going to want to have a really good sleeping bag. You're going to want to have really good clothes, warm clothes, dress appropriately for the weather, and be prepared to exist without external heat. I run a diesel heater, but again, if it doesn't fire up or there's some sort of a problem with it or your power bank goes flat or something happens, you don't want to be 100% reliant on that. It's a nice to have, not a need to have, right? So while I do have a diesel heater and I've gone in, negative 20-degree temps before, and I do that quite a bit, that's actually my preferred time to camp. The diesel heater is a game changer for that, but again, be prepared. If that doesn't, I had mine shut off one time at midnight. And rather than get down, I just put on my jacket and I put on a sock hat and I cuddled down into my mummy bag and I was fine for the rest of the night. Another option is you could start your vehicle. So if you're in a dangerous situation, if you aren't appropriately dressed, if you can't get warm, you can always run your vehicle all night. You can get behind the driver's seat and you can turn on your vehicle and lay down in the back. I've done that before in my Xterra, back when I had that. So, there are a ton of options to make winter camping better. Like I mentioned earlier, you can always layer up, but there's only so much layering down you can do in the summer. So that is why, in my opinion, fall and winter camping is my season. That's when I like to go camping. That's when I prefer to go camping, is in the fall and winter, because I hate bugs, I hate ticks, I don't like rain. I don't like being hot and sweaty. I don't mind being cold, and I can always have a big fire, or I can get a propane fire pit going and blazing really easily. Now, you do have to watch the propane sometimes in the winter can freeze up, or it will just function differently because of the cold temps. If you're in negative degree weather, the propane doesn't burn as well. So you could have problems with that too. You may have to have a wood fire to stay warm because the propane's not going to function. You may have to figure out a different way to cook stuff because your propane may not function. You may have to bring something electric. So again, you just kind of have to think about these things and kind of weigh out the pros and cons to decide which type of trip is better for you. Again, my opinion, fall, winter. So, but what do you guys think? If you're on YouTube, post up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Again, if you're on the podcast, jump over to Facebook, jump over to the Newbie Overlanders group, join those groups, and drop comments about that. Feel free to share the video over there and say, hey, I watched this video or listen to this podcast, and here are my thoughts, right? So again, hopefully that was helpful for you, whether you're newer or not. If you're just kind of thinking about overlanding and you're like, well, it's summer, I need to go. I don't want you to go out and have a really miserable time and sweat to death and get a tick bite or something and get sick and then decide you don't like camping or overlanding at all. There are different seasons. Pick the one that makes the most sense for you, that you prefer, and then you could go all the time, right? So that'll kind of do it for this episode. So in the description down below are links to all the things that I mentioned in this episode, so feel free to check those out. There's also going to be links to all my social channels, so again, if you want to join the conversation, go over there. There's a link to my website where I've got funny overlanding camping themed patches and stickers, funny stuff like don't burn your wiener and it's a hot dog, or F people, let's go overlanding, that kind of stuff. So check those out. Then below this video, if you're watching on YouTube, is a join button. That's just kind of a passive way to support the channel. It's about $7 a month, but you get early access to the videos and a couple of other perks. So if you just kind of want to say, hey, thanks, or hey, I'm enjoying the content, or hey, I'd like to see this stuff earlier, that's a good passive way to do it, but no pressure whatsoever. Then there's also the Patreon group, which is an amazing group of guys, and we talk all the time on a 24/7 Discord. We've got a once-a-month Zoom call, and we're doing a couple trips every year, so tons of cool stuff there. And then I mentioned it earlier, but the Newbie Overlanders Facebook group is totally free to join, full of awesome people, different from the big groups because there's no bullying going on there. We're pretty selective with who we let in, and we kick people out if they're jerks. So if you want to come and ask questions and learn, that may be a good place to start. But again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.